Muskanani. We are here for a session on achieving problem solution fit and product market fit. First and foremost, I welcome our Chief Patrons, Sri Vijay Kumar Gupta sir, Chairman BIT Trust, Sri IP Mishra sir, Secretary BIT Trust, our patrons Dr. Arun Arora sir, Director BIT Trust, Dr. Mohan Gupta, Principal BIT Trust, Dr. Manisha Sharma Madam, Principal BIT Trust, our convener for Startup Club, Dr. Shubhita Nam, advisor, Dr. Satya Vivar, our program coordinator, Professor Vinaya Madam, our club coordinator, Professor Kumar, and club Pakaiba, Professor Shubham Dashur, Pushpendra Singh, and Professor always provided students a great and prominent environment for supporting staff to provide guidance at all level aspects of the function. Now, request Shubhita Nakman to please visit the speaker. Please.
Thank you, Ananya. A very warm good morning to all of you. Respected Dr. Bhaskar Gupta ji, speaker of today's session, Mrs. Vinita Gupta ma'am, coordinator of this session, dear Startup Club faculty members, dear Startup Club student member, coordinators, and my dear participants. Today's session is on achieving problem solution fit and product market fit. I want to share that these themes are given by AICT and you have to attend all the programs. You have to attend series of programs. Then only you can connect the connectivity of these programs and you can do better in a startup, in your startup or any field. So I think this is going to be very beneficially for all of you. And I thanks again Dr. Bhaskar ji for accepting our invitation. And I want to share one line with you. जिसने कहा कल दिन गया टल, जो कहा परसों बीत गए बरसों. और जिसने कहा आज उसने किया राज. तो आप सभी के लिए बहुत सारी गुड विशेस और आप अपने आज पे फोकस करिए, कोई भी काम को फ्यूचर के लिए नहीं टालिए एंड जो भी आप करके वर्क करेंगे उसमें आपको बहुत सक्सेस मिले. इसके लिए बेस्ट विशेस. थैंक यू एंड ओवर टू मुस्कान.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such great words. So, the objective of this event is to make participants aware about entrepreneurship and to identify a platform problem worth solving. The potential of scaling and getting to product market fit, and to enlighten us more about this topic, we have with us Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, sir, research scientist and director, NITRA Technical Campus. He joined as an officiating director and dean at IIMT Group of Colleges, Greater Noida in June 2020. Dr. Gupta completed his BE in 2001 and MTech with honors in 2006, while electronics and communication has been his core areas. Dr. Gupta, in his academic planning for more than 19 years now, has taught various subjects in both undergraduate and postgraduate in many renowned institutes such as AKGEC, ABES, IIM, and DIT. He is presently working as a president in IIC Cell and trained as an innovation ambassador of Ministry of Education Innovation Cell. He is startup founder and currently handling MSME based incubation centers, having more than 35 startups. Sir has more than 5 Indian patents published, 2 copyrights, and 2 book chapters in CRC Press. Other than basic teaching, Sir has also published and presented at various conferences several papers in national or international journals guiding MTech projects, working on various state and central government sponsored projects, and on UAE, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Oman, Afghanistan, on academic cum research mission in affiliation with world universities. We welcome you, sir, and request you to begin with today's session.
Thank you, Muskan, for such a nice introduction about me. Good morning to one and
Thank
all
you, sir.
present here for attending today's session on achieving problem solution and product market fit, which is also one of the quarter activities of IIC Cell, Institution Innovation Council Cell of Ministry of Education Innovation Cell. Let me express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Nagpal, Dr. Vinita Gupta, Honorable Principal of the BIT Durg Startup Club, Udan Incubation Scheme. So I welcome you all to this wonderful session, and hopefully some of you might be working as a startup founder, and hopefully you will be learning. This session would be more insightful and encouraging you as a startup founder. May I now request Muskan, our coordinator, to kindly present the PPT on my behalf. Uh, So, welcome to this session on achieving problem solution and product market fit. Next slide. If you look at any customer development process, it usually consists of three important steps: problem solution fit, product market fit, business model market fit. I'm not going to discuss about business model market fit today, which is not a part of the session. So we will be discussing about problem solution and product market fit. Next slide. If you look at which is about problem solution fit, which is customer development basically. How are you going to achieve it? By finding a problem which must be worth solving. The problem which you have to identify by empathizing with the customers or the end users. Your problem which has been identified by you must always address the wants and needs of the customers. Once the problem is identified, you have to realize some innovative solution or feasible, viable solution for the identified problem, which is also the part of problem solution fit. You have to interview your customers, you have to demonstrate in front of them, you have to be ready with minimum viable business, which you are going to demonstrate outside your team. Once customer development is over, gradually you will be moving to product market fit, where you are going to make your product ready for the market, for its proper launch into the market, for commercialization, for revenue generation, and thereafter scaling of the business. So this is about customer validation. Through this way, you are actually going to validate your customer. What are their needs and wants? What they want? So it is up to you. Whatever you are going to develop, it could be a product development, technology development, service, which could be any online service, it could be any process, so which you are going to launch into the market. The most important stage, past this stage, you would have validated your product and business. So once you have achieved the product market fit, definitely you would have validated your product, and then you can think of launching it into the market with scaling, with market expansion, of course growth, revenue generation. Once both of these have been achieved by you, you now think about the scaling, about the growth, which is about the customer creation. Here you are going to create your customer. you are going to scale up your business. You can focus on growth only after you have validated your product. So this scaling is actually can be achieved in number of steps, not in just a single run. Next. If you look at the different stages of the startups, problem solution fit is about formation, where you have to generate your creative and innovative idea for the identified problem. Once the problem, you are ready with your problem statement, after that only you are going to perform ideation. Ideation refers to idea generation. We have number of techniques for ideation, which includes prototyping, brainstorming, brain writing, brain mapping, scamper, worst possible idea. Not just one, number of techniques are around us. We can choose any one for ideation. Once you have generated your idea, you have to be ready with your experimental proof of concept, which is a one kind of written document where you are going to justify that whatever the concept you are going to use is feasible, is genuine, and is viable. Please do remember, if you have identified the wrong problem from the customers, then I am not sure where your startup will go, might be going in the wrong direction. So you have to be very careful when you are going to empathize with end users in order to define the problem statement. Once your experimental proof of concept has been validated by you successfully, it means your formation is over. Then you will be moving to validation part. This is the right time to validate your idea. This is the right time to validate your prototype, where you are going to work with your prototype. You have to develop a minimum viable product based on the prototype. Prototype is to be used for validation, which is to be presented in front of the customers. You have to collect their feedback. You, after collecting their feedback, you have to perform analysis and synthesis. After that, you are going to learn, and based on that learning, you have to perform number of iterations until you are going to have right product or right service in your hands, which you are going to launch into the market. Once the validation phase is over and now your prototype is acceptable by a customer, you can now develop the real product for launch into the market for commercialization. Once validation is over, you can now think of the growth of your business, market expansion, more customer creation. You can work for growth. So once your business has been established properly, once you have achieved problem solution fit, product market fit, you can now go up to business model market fit, which must be a relevant and innovative business model. Number of business models are existing around us. Canvas is there, business model canvas, lean canvas, startup, lean startup methodology is there if you are working with startups. So you have to go for lean development. Next. What exactly is problem solution fit? The problem solution fit simply means that you have found a problem with your customer, and that the solution you have realized for it actually solving the customer's problem. So it means you have identified the problem of the customer, and solution which is to be realized has to address that particular problem. Next. Problem solution fit, this occurs when you have some evidence that customers care about certain jobs, pains, and gains. At this stage, you have proved the existence of a problem and have designed a value proposition that addresses your customers' jobs, pains, and gains. What do I mean? You have to create unique value proposition. Once you are working with problem solution fit, you have to add some value to your product or the service which you are going to launch into the market. Ultimately, it is the customer who is indirectly or directly going to pay, the money for your product, is going to add value to your service or the product only if you have added some new features in your product. If you have launched the same kind of product which is already present in the market, I'm sure nobody will be interested. No customer will be attracted towards your product or service. So be careful to add unique value proposition at the time of problem solution fit. Next. What do you have with the problem solution fit? We have to be ready with a minimum viable product, which is not exact real product, but it is a some new version of the original product with some features which you are going to use for validation. Once your MVP has been accepted by the customer, you can start the market. There are some satisfied early adopters who will be using your minimum viable product, who are ready to pay money for your product or service. This is a validated problem that you are solving with the early evangelists. So you must have definitely in the beginning, you are going to solve the problem with evangelists. Next. How many early evangelists should you sell the MVP to? It varies tremendously by product, service, or business. But according to Steve Blank, you need at least 3 to 5 satisfied paying customers for a problem solution fit. So you must have at least 3 to 5 customers who are ready to pay for your product, for your service. Then only you can steps by which problem solution fit can be achieved. Next slide. Who is your customer? It is very important to have a good picture of your customer, not just demographic data, but sociographic data must also be available with you. You have to understand the problem of the customer, make certain assumptions, hypotheses of the problems, which you have to validate. You think your customer has, and then go on to validate those assumptions. In the best case scenario, you can provide measurable insight into how big the customer's problem is. So I hope you must have understood. You have to validate your assumptions. You have to understand the problem of the customer. Based on that, you are going to develop the product with some additional features. Next. Is the customer aware of the problem? More informed the customer is about their problem, the better. It may even be the case that your customer has realized an inefficient homegrown solution to try to solve the problem. Try as hard as you can to identify how well the customer is aware of the problem and when the customer will run into the problem. If you validate the problem, you can realize your innovative solution, describe the benefits and functionalities of your product or service. Next. What are alternative solutions for the customers? It's not a blue ocean where there is no competition. You are not working in a blue ocean, but dear students, you are actually going to work in a red ocean where it's a highly competitive world. A lot of competitors are sitting in the market with same kind of product, same kind of service. So you have to be very careful when you are working as a startup founder. You have to develop product which must address the problems of the customers. What I mean, you have to first perform empathy, which is also one of the steps of design thinking process. So without empathy, no startup can succeed. And you cannot earn, you are the moderate risk taker. So in the beginning, don't expect any kind of financial gain or rewards, but surely once you would be able to establish your business successfully, the revenue generation will be there. What are considerations your customer has while choosing a solution? What are important go no go parts of your business? You have to be aware of these things. Product or service, you have to map these out as much as possible. Make sure your product has to be optimized for them. So you have to optimize. Next. Does your product or service actually solving the customer's problem? What are important go no go parts of your business, product, or service? or service. Map these out as much as possible. But you have to identify whether your problem is quantifiable or not. If your problem is not worth solving, not feasible, not viable, then you probably you won't be able to your problem is quantifiable. You have to measure the effectiveness of your solution. Make sure you have sufficient evidence that your product or service actually solves the customer's problem. I have already discussed about lean methodology. So you can also make use of this build, measure, learn cycle, which is one of the steps of lean startup methodology, where you are going to build your prototype. You are now ready with your MVP, minimum viable product. You are going to launch. You want to validate your experimental proof of concept. So you are going to demonstrate your product outside in order to measure the performance of your product. Once you have measured the performance, whether your product is acceptable or not, so based on that measurement, you are going to collect the feedback, and based on that feedback, you are going to make the required changes in your product or service. So that is about build, measure, learn cycle. Next, the problem solution fit is an important step towards the product market fit, but often an underestimated one. What do you think about the problem solution fit? Next slide, please. So problem solution fit is an important step. So you cannot directly achieve product market fit. So first you have to achieve problem solution fit. Thereafter, you will be able to achieve product market fit. After product market fit, scaling comes into the picture. You can think of scaling your business from 1 crore to 10 crore or 100 crore or 1 lakh crore. So what do you think about problem solution fit? It is about customer discovery. It is about product market fit, scaling. So here you are going to, you validated with MVP and prospects that a specific solution will solve a known problem to such a degree that customer will buy it. You have to understand, is the identified problem real? Will the target customer pay for your product or service? Will the target customer accept whatever you are going to offer in the market? So this is about your value proposition. Next, there must be at least 12 customers who will be happy with your product or service. So you have to solve the problem. If interested in your developed realized solution, because you have realized very innovative solution, creative solution in order to address the problem. So certainly you will find more number of customers who will be interested in your solution. There must be at least 5 early adopters who will be helping you out in the scaling of your business, who will be providing you some working capital also. And they are, but certainly in turn they are expecting something from you, that you should be ready with your feasible idea. If you are going to present your pitch deck in front of angel investors, crowdfunding approach, or venture capitalists, or some other successful entrepreneurs, so those people are actually going to look for some innovativeness. So it must be there. If at least one feature you have added and 5 early adopters are there and who are ready to pay for your product or service, then your startup is going in a right direction. And definitely you would be able to go for scaling also. Next, if you look at the canvas, so it usually consists of 9 basic building blocks. So as a startup founder, you have to work on this canvas. You have to fill all the blocks so that you will be having a more clear idea about your business. You have to understand who is your customer. You have to understand You have to explore the limitations. Who are going to buy your product? How are you going to be different than competition? You have to focus on frequent, costly, or urgent problems to be solved. You have to understand the root cause of the problem which you are going to solve. Tap into, resemble, or support existing behavior. Of course, you have to work in the design side also. Design aspect must also be taken into account. Design triggers that fit real life, spark associations, make it familiar, add emotions for stronger message. Your down to earth approach is very, very important because see, if you are working as a startup founder, you are actually should not think that you are owning a business. Rather than becoming an owner of the business, you have to work as a team leader. You must have some technical skills, marketing skills, and some other critical thinking skills also, higher order thinking skills. And of course, innovation must always be there. And where innovation comes from? Innovation comes from the creativity or imagination. So creativity is always a fuzzy idea that can never be clarified until it is made into the product. And innovation helps, innovation brings your lab technologies also outside of the lab for commercialization. Research is always present within the laboratory. It never comes out of that lab. Innovation is one which helps in taking that technology out of that lab for commercialization or technology transfer purpose. Next. So problem solution fit is about to understand your problem, which you have identified by having an empathy with your customer. This is the just beginning. When you are going to empathize, you are going to express your mercy, sincerity, compassion towards your customers. Then only you can identify. You should remember if any startup is going to miss this empathy stage of design thinking process, then definitely whatever the product you have developed, whatever the service you have developed, your startup will fail, your idea will die. So please do remember to empathize. Next slide, please. Problem solution fit is about to understand the problem. Once the problem has been understood clearly, you have to now realize some innovative solution in order to address the identified problem statement. You have to be ready with your solutions. And how are you going to launch? You have to develop your MVP, which is a minimum viable product, which you are going to use for validation. So this is about your problem solution fit. Next. Next slide. Problem solution fit is about learning. I already told you this is a part of lean methodology. So does this solution work and can we prove it? Does it solve enough of the problem to be meaningful for people? Do people trust it enough to use it? This is a part of learning. Are people willing to spend more time and effort to solve this problem? So you have to be very careful during the learning phase. Once you have learned, you have to build. You have to add value proposition canvas. You have to work with value proposition canvas. You have to be user centered. You have to work with business canvas. And of course, you have to work with MVP, minimum viable product, during this particular stage. Once the building phase is over, you have to measure the performance by having literature study, competitive analysis, by undergoing online surveys, co-create value proposition, and concierge experiment. And of course, testing and experimentation has to be performed in order to measure the effectiveness of your business, of your product, or the service. Problem solution fit is the first step on the journey to product market fit. Problem solution fit establishes that you are fixing a problem for early adopters successfully. By no means does this establish that you have product market fit, as early adopters will usually only make up a small part of your potential market, but it's a good step in the right direction. Next. You all must be knowing about Uber. Uber and Ola services we have been using since last many years. Uber has successfully introduced the concept of problem solution fit and product market fit. And that's why the Uber started as a startup and now has acquired a status of unicorn and after that decacorn status in the world. Because Uber achieved both problem solution fit and product market fit for its transportation services from one place to another place. And you have achieved problem solution fit when you have managed to eliminate all the risky assumptions from your solution. So you must know 42 unicorn startups were born in 2021 itself during COVID-19 pandemic, and all these unicorn startups were based on, pharmaceutical industries, telemedicines, medical devices, and some startups are agriculture based. So those startups are all unicorn, and total of 84, unicorn startups are there in our country, and the government is expecting to achieve a number of 100 by 2020-30. 2020-30, we have to achieve this number 100. So we have to work in that direction also. Next. So you can achieve this through testing and solution with consumers, traditionally by doing interviews with consumers. However, those that subscribe to methodologies of Eric, the lean startup, would say that you can actually achieve this by building early solutions and putting in market, making constant iterations of this solution based on data from consumer interaction, sales, and other behaviors. Next. What this does is test in the real world, remove the chance of both false positives or false negatives from interviews. Next. So if you look at this startup curve, you will see in the beginning of this startup curve, lot of enthusiasm is there. You are very happy because you are now going to open your business. You are now going to work as a startup founder, but gradually over the time, the stage of experimentation and testing comes, which is a part of any startup cycle, where you have to work as a moderate risk taker. No financial gain, no revenue generation is there during this particular stage. But as soon as you are working in the cycle, this phase will be over soon, and certainly after some period, you would be able to achieve product market fit. Once the product market fit is achieved, now you can think of scaling and you can expect some exponential growth in your business. Next. The product market fit concept was developed and named by Andy, and co-founder of Wealthfront, and is a co-founder of Benchmark Capital. The core of Reclef's idea for product market fit was based on his analysis of the investing style used by pioneering venture capitalist and founder John Valentine. Next. So if you look at this product market fit, it is about your product which must have some feature set, which must have value proposition. If your product is not having any kind of additional features, if you have not added any value to your product, then definitely your product is not having any market readiness. In that case, you cannot think of launching your product into the market. But once the product is having value proposition, you can now think of launching your product into the market. Once it has been launched, you have to understand the needs of your customers, and you have to identify your target customer, your target market, where you have to launch your product. Next. If you address a market next that really wants your product, if the dogs are eating the dog food, then it's okay. But conversely, if they are not interested in your food, it means something wrong is there. Something wrong is going in your startup. So you have to be very careful. In a nutshell, the product market fit is having a product that is needed or valued by a market. Next, the product market fit in a nutshell is about next why, how, what. Why? It is about problem market fit, where you have to demonstrate, you have to sell, you have to build. You have to use lean startup methodology. During this, you have to build, measure, learn. This is the most important, lean development method, where you have to first build, then you are going to measure the effectiveness of your solution, and you are going to learn from the feedback. Now you have to be ready with minimum viable product in order to validate your idea, your experimental proof of concept. So then now you can, after this, you can think of launching your product into the market. Hopefully you would be able to make your product ready for the market. Next. You have achieved product market fit when you have moved beyond your early adopters and consumers still loving your product. It's important not to scale until you have achieved product market fit. Otherwise, you will be scaling something that no one wants. So you have to be very careful that while working with product market fit, so there is a pre-product market fit stage which is called traction. Now you have to escalate. Once traction stage is over, there is post-product market fit, which is about scaling. So between these two things, you have to work traction and scaling. Next. If you have achieved three important signs, then it's good for your business. Sudden and significant pulling from the market, that's nice. Gradual but a compounding pulling from the market, that's also a good sign for your startup. Hitting a milestone that proves it's working. If you have getting these three important signs, then it means you have achieved the product market fit successfully. Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, Caviar, Datadog, Tinder, a number of startup companies are existing in the market who have successfully achieved product market fit. Next. Six, come up with product hypothesis. Hypothesis, you have to validate also. Prioritize hypothesis. You have to speak with 5 buyers who will be buying your product. You have to make bets with MVPs, which you are going to use for validation. Keep, kill, or pivot. You have to now perform the iterations based on the feedback until you get the right product or right service for proper launch into the market. So you have to work on these 6 important steps during product market fit. Next. If you look at this particular retention curve, next slide, retention curve, you will come to know we have compared this product A with product B, where activeness versus time. If you are comparing these two, you will see the performance of product B is gradually declining and it is going to zero. Why? Because if you are comparing it with product A, which is having a consistent and uniform performance over the time, the reason being the product A has successfully achieved product market fit. That's why you can see the performance of product A is uniform throughout the time, and product B performance is not good because product B case you have not achieved product market fit. Next. Product market fit in general, in a nutshell, is about target audience, where you have to identify your audience, your target customer, where you are going to target market, where you are going to launch your product. It is about value proposition. Next slide. Value proposition is about to add value to your product or to your service. This is your value proposition. Once you have completed the value proposition, you have to develop your minimum viable product in order to validate your idea, in order to know about technical feasibility and commercial viability also. Once your MVP has been accepted by your customer or end user, you have to develop your original final product, which you have to launch into the market for commercialization. Next. The role of marketing in any business is very important. Marketing, branding. Once you are going to launch your product into the market, if you have not done anything in the direction of marketing, branding, then again your business will fail. Even if you have developed a very innovative product, maybe you will not find any customer for your product because marketing was missing. So this, like, you must have seen Apple. Apple iPhones are very popular, and the customers are paying, more amount for these iPhones, iPods, iPads, because Apple Corporation has successfully implemented product market fit concept. Not just this, technology readiness levels, design thinking process. Since last many decades, Apple has successfully, implemented all these concepts for their iPhones, and that's why no competitor are no competitors are present in the market compared to Apple iPhones. So everybody wants to purchase Apple's iPhone because of their sleek and unique design, which and additional features they are trying to add. Next. Countless companies have put together great teams who built great products that never found the success they anticipated. Why? Because they were not rigorous enough at establishing product market fit, which is what we are really seeking when we explore any new opportunity. Startups often use the lean startup methodology to try to achieve and validate product market fit, but the methodology is applicable to any product or service. This methodology investigates three dimensions that make up product market fit. Next. Is the product valuable? Is the product viable? Is the product feasible? So you have to work all these things about your product. So you have to understand the feasibility, viability, and about your commercial viability also. So you have to work with technical feasibility and commercial viability of the product. Next. For internal products or IT projects, problem solution fit is probably a much better term. But regardless of what type of product we deliver, we must iterate through each of the three dimensions quickly and frequently, because this is the crux of the product management. Next slide. Next, after this. Yes, why is product market fit important? I tell you one example. Couple of years back, 3D televisions were launched into the market without achieving product market fit. Their product was not, ready for market. They didn't have any kind of features, and the startup company launched this 3D television into the market without product market fit. What happened as a result? Nobody was interested in this 3D television, and that startup failed. That idea couldn't work. So this is one of the examples. See, because they missed, they underestimated the concept of product market fit. They achieved problem solution fit, and with directly launched the product into the market. And what happened? Nobody was interested in that 3D television. Next. So product has to be very valuable. It must have viability. It must have feasibility. Next. Would you come to slide number 40? 3D television never achieved product market fit because the product was not that much more valuable than current solutions to a large enough market to make it a viable business. I hope you must have understood. Come to slide number 42. How do you determine market fit for a product? When evaluating potential ideas, the problem must be worth solving and developing. It should align with your business and brand, with enough people willing to pay for it. The product market fit pyramid is a useful tool to start with. Next. If you look at this pyramid, you have to start with market opportunity hypothesis. You have to perform the screening. You have to validate the market problem. Thereafter, you have to ideate. You have to generate your idea. You have to develop experimental concept, product concept, and you have to validate your product concept. Next. Each element of the triangle depending on the others. Think of it as spinning three plates, one in each hand and one on your foot. It's hard to keep everything spinning and balanced at the same time. Next. Would you please come to slide number 46? Now it's the time to validate the market problem. Once you have identified a problem worth solving, it's tempting to move directly into the solution space. But remember, the critical step is testing your ideas with customers. To that end, Alberto introduced the concept of prototypes in his book. You have probably heard of prototypes, but not prototype. Prototype is the previous version of any prototype. So when some problem is there, in prototype, then by that time you must have invested a lot of money in your business, and you would not be able to change. That's why it's important to have pre-prototype versions where you can certainly change based on the needs and wants. Next. Then you come to slide number 48. Here is a sample of the techniques that can help you prototype quickly without having to invest much in new technology. So how can you come out with your prototype? Next. You can make use of explainer videos. You can go for crowdfunding approach. You can have storyboards. Next. Remember that as you are using these techniques, you are trying to prove that the product is valuable to your potential customers and they are willing to pay enough to make your investment worthwhile. Once you confirm that the market is large enough to be viable and that customers will find your solution valuable, you can return to building prototypes or basic services to confirm that the product is feasible for your company to build profitability. Next. It's very important as a startup founder to have better understanding of TAM, SAM, and SOM models. Next. Come to slide number 53. TAM is about total available market, where you have to focus on total market, total size. Example, let it be a LED market. SAM is about serviceable available market, where you have to focus on your own technology, on your own services. Then serviceable obtainable market is SOM, where you have to focus on competition, different countries, trends, expected demand, forecasting, sales, distribution channels, and other market influences. This is about SOM. So once you are going to make use of TAM, SAM, and SOM, you are going to capture the entire market. You are going to understand about the market segment, particularly the target customer for your product. Next. When Apple first introduced the iPhone, they also made use of this TAM model. Apple evaluated the total addressable market TAM for cellular phones, and they quickly came to the conclusion that they could not tackle all of it at once with the help of the TAM. Next. They lacked the scale to service the entire market. Not everyone would be able to purchase an iPhone because Apple did not have the capacity to to churn out enough of them. This is called the serviceable available market, SAM, the portion of the TAM your company can reasonably expect to serve. Even in a crowded market, there is typically a room for disruptors, and in a market with no commercial solutions, you are likely to develop an internal solution or work as you are obtain of at the same time. Next, as you are developing your own TAM SAM SOM model, you will need to take many internal and market constraints into account and make a number of assumptions. Be as conservative as you can so that if your results are showing a profitable opportunity, you can be confident in the estimate. Next, it's the time to perform ideation. Once the problem has been identified, it's time to transition into the solution space, where during ideation, you have to generate some innovative ideas in order to address the identified problem statement. Next, it did not achieve broad consumer success, but it was not really meant as part of the ideation process. The idea was not enough. Ultimately had enough considered a problem which had no compelling solution. Apple ultimately solved for. After several rounds of ideation, Apple did not end up building a phone at all. Instead, they set out a tiny computer that could also make phone calls. Next, it's the time to develop and to validate your product concept. Apple knew how to build full-featured computers, and they knew how to build small consumer devices like iPods. But they had never attempted to build something both as small as concepts before setting on a single pane of durable glass with a multi-touch interface. They actually knew it solved the problem and it was very delightful to use, but it would not be cheap. Next, they built a hypothesis based on their research during the validation stage. They worked on validation. After multiple rounds of testing, they targeted consumers who were fashion forward, about convenience, and likely already owned both a mobile phone and an iPod. Next, a better framework to help you gather and analyze this data. To achieve product market fit, remember that your product must be valuable, viable, and feasible. You have to develop a market opportunity hypothesis. Thereafter, you have to validate your hypothesis. You have to screen for fit. You have to validate the market develop and have to develop your product concept. Next. At the heart of product market fit is lists of the customer, observing their behavior and determining what problems they are looking to solve when they purchase your products and services. The rest is
If anyone wants to ask any questions or have any queries, they can turn on their mic and ask. Anyone? Okay, so I guess there are no questions. Thank you so much, sir, for such a great session. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experiences for us. We are pleased to have your valuable contribution. The session was inspirational and thought-provoking and was indeed helpful for our future entrepreneurs. On the behalf of Startup Club, I would like to thank you for your great presence and afternoon. Now, I would request Professor Vinita Gupta ma'am, our today's session coordinator, to deliver her vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am.
On behalf of Impact Man, I sincere thanks to Honorary Secretary Shri Anisha sir, Director Dr. Vibha sir, Principal Dr. Mohan Gupta sir, Vice Principal Dr. Manisha Sharma ma'am for their continuous support and guidance. With great sense of appreciation, my heartfelt thanks to today's speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Gupta sir, who took time for us in spite of his busy schedule. Your presence and wise words will definitely inspire our students. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would also like to thank thank our convener of the Startup Club, Dr. Shubha Nagpal ma'am. Being a catalyst, she always inspires us to do our best. Thank you, ma'am. I also thank my team members of Startup Club, without whom this event would not be a successful one. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request everyone to switch on their cameras so that we can take a screenshot of it. Hmm. Okay. I think we're done. With this, I wind up today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. See you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much and congratulations Vineeta मैम, बहुत ही अच्छे से कंडक्ट हुआ प्रोग्राम। और आगे स्टूडेंट्स आप लोग ध्यान रखिए, औरों को मोटिवेट करिए। और ये जो अपना प्रोग्राम है ये एक सीरीज में है, तो ध्यान रखिए जब तक आप पूरे प्रोग्राम्स अटेंड नहीं करेंगे तब तक आपको बहुत ज़्यादा इसका बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा। और ये सारे अपने प्रोग्राम्स की जो रिकॉर्डिंग है वो यूट्यूब में भी अवेलेबल है, so you can go through that also anytime. And thank you students and all. And Rita ma'am, thanks so much. Muskan, Ananya, then
Thank
Pratyush,
you, ma'am.
आप सभी बहुत ही एक्टिव हैं, इसी तरह एक्टिव रहिए। और नेक्स्ट
Thank you,
कमिंग
ma'am.
वीक में हम एक मीटिंग रखेंगे अपन, उसमें फोर्थ सेमेस्टर के जो मेंबर्स जिनने ज्वाइन किया है उनको आप लोग थोड़ा सा ट्रेंड करिए, और जो अपना प्रोग्राम होता है उसकी रिपोर्टिंग के बारे में भी उनको अपन बता देंगे कि किस तरह से रिपोर्टिंग करनी है। तो नेक्स्ट वीक में सभी की कन्वीनियंस को देखते हुए अपन सेकेंड हाउस में मीटिंग रखेंगे। उसी में आप लोगों के लास्ट ईयर
Yes,
के
ma'am.
सर्टिफिकेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मैम करा देंगे अपन। और इन लोगों को जो फोर्थ सेमेस्टर के बच्चे हैं उनको थोड़ा सा लाइन अप कर देंगे, सो दैट नेक्स्ट सेशन जो अपना क्वार्टर 4 क्वार्टर 5 रहेगा उसमें आप उन लोगों से काम कराएंगे। ठीक, आप लोग उनको गाइड करिएगा, 6 स्टूडेंट, and they will do the work. Okay, thank you so
Yes,
much.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.